Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. We're going to talk about Luigi Mangione today. I know everybody has different thoughts about him, different opinions about him, and we haven't really covered that story on the channel before. We mentioned it briefly. I think I did a short asking if you guys wanted me to do like a deep dive on Mangione because I thought the whole thing was highly suspicious. And today's video is not going to be that, but we are going to look at one aspect to this. But before we do that, first of all, I have to say, I discovered a gray hair today. So for all of you who say nothing ever happens, you have been BTFO'd. It's so over. I'm just kidding. I mean, I did find a gray hair, but it doesn't really matter. And also, I'd like to point out I am wearing my flower pearl earrings. So there's that. They are very cute. I'm very pleased about that. Okay, so basically, one aspect to this I want to cover is the story we were given for how he was apprehended, which was, oh, he's at Altoona McDonald's and the one of the employees there just happened to recognize him. Now, go back in time to the only images that had been released of him were several images that all themselves look very different. They're kind of grainy surveillance images, and there's no way, in my opinion, that you would be able to look at this guy with a different hat on, different eyebrows, and go, oh yeah, I recognize him as this wanted fugitive. I worked in fast food when I was 14. I worked at a Wendy's, and side note, I had dyed my hair red, like bright red, kind of like the actual Wendy's girl, and then I would put it in pigtail braids because I didn't want to have to do I didn't want to do the drive-through. I didn't want to have to do any of the actual like grunt work in the back of the restaurant. I just wanted to be at the front taking orders. And so when I did the pigtails, management would put me in the front because customers coming in would go, "Oh, look, she looks like Wendy. That's so cute and quaint." It was so anyways, I remember though being the person at the front of the fast food restaurant, and there's no way, like, there's so many customers who come in throughout the day, and it is, you're constantly doing things. There's no way that you would look at somebody and have the time to even think, or the inclination to even think, oh yeah, this is this wanted fugitive. I just think it's a silly story. I mean, it's possible, but in my opinion, it's highly unlikely. I think this makes much more sense. So this is a thread from Sick Sad World saying the official narrative of how Luigi was apprehended doesn't add up. Evidence suggests a deeper surveillance operation involving real-time facial recognition technology. Let's delve into the inconsistencies and explore the implications. So these are the pictures from the McDonald's. Here he is eating a hash brown, and we're supposed to believe that this somehow caught the attention of randos working at a McDonald's. Think about that. Like, seriously consider that. Considering Mangione's efforts to conceal his identity, it is improbable a fast food employee could identify him based solely on limited public images. We're talking about a high-pressure, fast-paced environment where employees process hundreds of customers daily. I would say, considering Mangione's alleged efforts to conceal his identity, because he may not have done this at all, he may be, being framed or set up, but it's also equally likely that this is another Dave McGowan program to yeet situation, just as likely. But what if the real key to his capture wasn't human recognition at all? I'll bet you didn't know McDonald's kiosk cameras have facial recognition technology. I would say it doesn't even matter about the kiosks, right? They have surveillance cameras in there, and at this point, like, McDonald's has a lot of money. I'm sure they have the latest cameras, and all of those probably include facial recognition. Given the integration of this technology, it's not unlikely federal agencies can access these systems for surveillance with real-time facial recognition across multiple venues. The NSA and other agencies already have a track record of using private surveillance networks. Admitting the feds are running real-time facial recognition surveillance across the country would spark outrage. Instead, they sell a more believable narrative that a heroic employee saved the day. Well, guys, this is already happening. Like, you already live in that dystopian surveillance world. You just don't know it. Your phone tracks you everywhere you go. It also can be remotely, they can turn on remotely your microphone or whatever. When you buy things on Amazon, like, they know what you're purchasing, they know what books you're reading, they know what items you have on your wish list. You're just feeding them data about yourself that they can use for profiling you. That's not to mention all of the Ring cameras that people have in their neighborhoods at this point. They have literally a neighborhood by neighborhood camera grid because of things like that. And these are dual use technologies. On the one hand, they're sold as a commercial product that is a gadget, an item of convenience, or, it's sold as something you need, like a camera surveillance system. And then on the other hand, the other dual use it serves is providing this kind of information to law enforcement. And yes, Ring cameras have been given to law enforcement without them requesting a warrant, right? They will give this information handed over. So you don't even have privacy walking outside the front door of your home. You are surveilled by Ring devices, and they've gotten so ubiquitous now that almost every neighborhood has at least one, if not Ring, a similar surveillance system. If this is true, it means federal agencies have access to live camera feeds in private businesses, and that they're using artificial intelligence to scan and identify individuals in real time. Surveillance is not limited to fugitives. It could extend to anyone, anywhere. Newsflash, that's been happening for a long time. This has massive implications for privacy and civil liberties. If McDonald's can be used as a hub for mass surveillance, what about other restaurant chains, fast food chains, grocery stores, gas stations? The infrastructure is already there, and I suggest that that's already happening. Kroger has faced scrutiny for using facial recognition technology also, and it's even more dystopian. Not only are they scanning faces, but they're linking that data to shopping profiles that they make on you, potentially altering prices in real time based on your data. This is crazy, but this happens. This isn't just about marketing. It is surveillance capitalism on steroids. Corporations are turning our faces into data points to manipulate our spending, while the government secretly piggybacks off that infrastructure to track civilians in real time. We should demand transparency. If facial recognition is being used at this scale, and it is, we have a right to know. How much data are these companies collecting? Who else has access to this data, such as third parties and law enforcement? How are these technologies regulated, if at all? I would say it's pretty much a gray area as far as the legal aspects of it goes. There's not tons of case law yet because the technology is new. That always happens with emerging technology, new technology. It is always initially in a gray zone because there haven't been, prosecutions yet that come from this with discovery where case law is created. At this point, it's sort of unregulated. There is no real regulation of this. And then consider, too, how many of these companies suffer massive data breaches. So that information is acquired by bad actors. It's very disturbing. We are at a crossroads. If we don't push back now, this kind of technology will become the norm. It already is the norm. Surveillance will be baked into every facet of our lives, from shopping to dining to simply walking down the street. This is all already true. You are already tracked while you are shopping. When you go out to dinner, if you go out to dinner at a restaurant, they have cameras there. You are being surveilled while you eat. Walking down the street, there are plenty of CCTV cameras, there are ring cameras. This is already happening. I don't know what else to say. The Mangione case and Kroger's practices show us the future, a world where our faces are not just tracked but exploited, both by corporations seeking profit and governments seeking control. We need transparency and accountability, clear limits on the use of facial recognition technology, protections against price manipulation based on profiling, and strong oversight of government access to private surveillance networks. This isn't just a McDonald's or Kroger issue, it is a systemic shift. Facial recognition is becoming the foundation of a surveillance economy, and we must demand better protections now. I agree, I just don't think it's going to happen. Now, a couple other things I wanted to add to this. Again, this is not a deep dive on the Mangione case, but I do want to add a few elements to it just to show you that perhaps this whole thing is a frame-up job, or is at least being controlled. So the judge is married, the judge overseeing Mangione's case, at least the pretrial aspects of it, is somebody who's married to a former healthcare executive. This should be considered a major conflict of interest, and yet here we are. The pretrial judge in the case involving the yeeting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson is married to a former Pfizer executive, Judge Catherine Parker's husband, Brett Parker. Magistrate Judge Catherine Parker, who is overseeing pretrial hearings for Luigi, is married to a former Pfizer executive and holds hundreds of thousands of dollars in stock, including in healthcare companies and pharmaceutical companies, according to her 2023 financial disclosures. The judge's ties to the healthcare business are a stark reminder of how pervasive the for-profit industry is in American life. A point made by Mangione himself. Now, I disagree with that statement. I think it's definitive when you don't really know if Mangione had anything to do with this. So I would say a point allegedly made by him. Now, they have a link here. You can download the PDF. This is from kenklippenstein.com. You can see that here. You can download her financial disclosure. Her husband, Brett, left Pfizer in 2010, where he served as vice president and assistant general counsel after holding the same titles at Wyeth, a pharmaceutical manufacturer that was acquired by Pfizer. According to Parker's disclosures, her husband is still receiving a pension from Pfizer. So again, this should be considered a massive conflict of interest, and yet it's not. Now, she also has a bunch of stocks in healthcare, pharmaceutical, biotech companies. So again, these should all be considered conflicts of interest. Now, I do want to remind you guys, of this absurdity. They did a ridiculous perp walk for Mangione. They brought him by helicopter, landed the helicopter in New York City. You can't see him now, but he was there. Mayor Eric Adams was participating in this perp walk, and need I remind everybody, this man is still innocent until convicted. He should have the presumption of innocence, okay? They don't do stuff like this even for serial killers. This is a public show of force, and it's an attempt, in my opinion, to taint any jury in New York. They're all going to see this perp walk, right? With Eric Adams there, and they had to do this big old show of force. You've got the FBI, NYPD, Joint T-Force, Joint JTF. So think about that. You got a lot of agencies on this. And one other aspect to this is, again, not just the surveillance aspect, facial recognition, but the fact that they're monitoring people online who are talking about the story, right? If you're a social media user who has expressed anything other than condemnation for the yeeting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, counter-terror authorities might consider you a bad boy or a bad girl. That's according to yet another document the media refuses to publish in full. So, of course, days after the yeeting, NYPD circulated an intelligence report focusing not just on the alleged yeeter, Mangione, but even ordinary people expressing what could be considered sympathy for him online, warning of a wide range of bad boys and girls that may view Mangione as a martyr. The report singles out disdain for corporate greed. You're not allowed to dislike corporate greed, I guess. The report, produced by NYPD's Intelligence and Counterterror Bureau on December 9, was blasted out to law enforcement and counterterror partners across the country. It was also leaked to select major media outlets, which refuse to permit the public to actually read the document. Right, you're just supposed to listen to their commentary on it without seeing it yourself. Remember when they tried to tell you weren't allowed to look at the WikiLeaks stuff? You had to get the information from them because they're the special boys in the media. It's absurd. Though these outlets were happy to quote selectively from it, the media's quotes and paraphrases tended to stress the document's focus on Luigi, but not its focus on his many alleged sympathizers. That is the problem with selective disclosure. The selections leave out the most important facts. By withholding documents and unilaterally deciding what portions merit public disclosure, the media is playing God. What else is new? This is the document, so you can look at it yourself. Now, this is a low quality image here, but you can see at the top, NYPD Shield countering T through information sharing, post-incident assessment. Writings of alleged perp of United Healthcare CEO reveal grievances against health insurance company, disdain for corporate greed. And again, what's weird about this whole thing is that we've learned Luigi was not on United Healthcare. He never had a claim denied, right? He didn't have that insurance. Neither did his mother. And if you remember, there were two different manifestos that were put out and ascribed to him. The first one was talking about basically the model of like Western healthcare, allopathic care or something like that, and it turned out to be fake. He was talking about his mom having all these problems and having her claims denied, essentially. This turned out to be a fabrication. And then the second manifesto ascribed to him, which is probably also a fabrication, this one probably written by the FBI. Literally, the first line of it says something like, to the feds, I'll make this brief because I respect what you do for the nation. Like, it's literally the FBI gassing themselves up. So people should be highly suspicious of, like, what is this guy's motive? Think about that. And think about also why you were lied to, why all of this disinformation and misinformation is being put out about this guy, and then we find out it wasn't true. Remember the backpack with the Monopoly money? Remember they said they found his fingerprint on a wrapper or something, and now it comes out that they haven't even conducted or concluded the forensic examination of his fingerprints and comparing them with the one on the wrapper. That hasn't been done yet, as far as I understand. Another weird aspect to this also is his lawyer is married to the lawyer who is representing P. Diddy. You couldn't make it up if you wanted to. This is Parapower Mapping. He says, here are some reasons why I increasingly suspect Luigi could be a patsy or mind-controlled shooter. To be clear, I support the executive... Well, we won't read that line, but the narrative doesn't add up, and that I agree with him on. He says, Luigi complains of extreme sleeplessness and brain fog while studying computer science at UPenn, an Ivy League company feeder with upwards of 4 different fellowship and research programs at the CIA. Moves into a Hawaiian, quote, intentional community run by a Kinsey-loving academic and globe-trotting Fulbright scholar in 2022, where he is introduced to the Unabomber's manifesto, despite displaying turbo-normie reading taste prior to then. So that's a little weird. He decides to finally undergo spinal fusion surgery for his slip disc last summer. The surgery is supposedly a rousing success, and he comes out of it proselytizing to back pain redditors that they should surgeon shop. not many, if any, instances of him critiquing the health insurance field have been found, and he is reportedly not insured by United Healthcare. Sometime this spring or last winter, Luigi embarks on a massive 2-month backpacking trip across Asia. Oswald in Russia, anyone? Hello? This February, United Health suffers the largest data breach in American history. Think about this, with the personal information of over 100 million people stolen. And this is very personal medical information. There are a lot of people who want their medical issues to be kept private. Think about that. Around the same time, Nancy Pelosi purchases stock in the cybersecurity company that UHC hired to investigate the hack on 2 occasions. One of the buys on the same day that the hack occurred. Despite an initial dip, the stock has since rallied. Also, it should be noted, Brian Thompson is named in a firefighter's pension fund lawsuit alleging insider trading for dumping $15 million in stocks before a DOJ probe against UHC was announced. So you got to start asking questions about, like, who benefits from this? Because to me, it doesn't seem like Luigi has at all. Upon his return to the States, Luigi abruptly and without warning goes dark, right? He cuts off all contact with his family, childhood friends from the prestigious Gilman Academy. This was the private all-boys school that he attended where he was valedictorian. Slight tangent, Gilman appears to have ignored or even protected numerous pedo faculty, yes, including an egregious case where a teacher was convicted of 9 counts last year. And by the way, this was a teacher who was employed back at the time that Luigi attended the school. So there could have been something that happened there. We don't know. During Luigi's AWOL period, the only people in his life he appears to be communicating with are the suspicious RJ from Surf Break, who turned him on to Ted K., or he's talking to a British tech writer on Twitter who Luigi tries to convince to schedule group video calls for his Substack subscribers so Luigi can recruit them for a rationalist, stoic, and effective altruist group he plans to organize. Seems a little weird to me. Remember, effective altruism is the nonsense that was put forward by Sam Bankman-Fried, etc. It's absurd, and it's not real. So Luigi is DMing complete strangers, but he can't take the time to answer one of the messages from his family or from his high school buddy whose wedding he'd committed to being a groomsman at. Remember, that person was tagged that Luigi's Twitter account was like, hey man, haven't heard from you in a while. I basically need to know if you're still coming and attending my wedding because I asked you to be in the wedding, and we haven't heard from you. You would think he would at least respond to these people. It's very bizarre. In September, Luigi removes his number from a WhatsApp group for Penn alum in Hawaii, breaking ties and isolating himself further. Although, this could also be looked at or construed as some kind of attempt at scrubbing digital comms evidence, although I don't know what evidence would have been in that WhatsApp group anyways, right? Like, that just doesn't make sense. October 1st, a Gilman classmate receives a message asking if he had heard from Luigi. In Baltimore and across the country, concerned loved ones and the Mangione clan continue their frantic search for Luigi, from whom there's only radio silence. So basically, his family is looking for him, his friends, childhood friends are looking for him, but we're to believe he's online talking to strangers and trying to recruit for some kind of organization, effective altruist organization he's going to set up. No, I'm sorry, that glows like the sun, okay? November 18th, Luigi's mother files a missing persons report with the SFPD. A day after the Brian Thompson clipping, the SFPD notifies the FBI of Luigi's identity, hinting at clear contradictions in the official law enforcement narrative. Zionist NYPD Intel Director Jessica Tersh maintains that they were kept in the dark. So you've got these conflicting narratives from various law enforcement agencies. You know, the FBI was alerted to him literally the next day. Did they ever look at anybody else as a suspect? You know, and I think that this also adds weight to the idea that he was tracked down using facial recognition. They were alerted to this guy as a missing person the day after the Brian Thompson yeeting. So it just makes sense to me that, yeah, they'd be trying to track him down. And I don't think they looked at anybody else as a potential suspect. Conflicting narratives from law enforcement and the feds regarding the sequence leading up to his apprehension at a McDonald's that could either point to parallel constructions to obscure facial recognition surveillance tech, or else compartmentalized sloppiness born of a need-to-know cover-up of a patsy frame-up job. And I believe that's true. You can see his missing person report here, that this was filed November 18th. So there you have it. He was already a missing person. You know, the cousin of Mangione had been missing, said Mangione had been missing for months, had undergone back surgery, and the family were desperate to find him. Members of that friend group tried texting and DMing Mangione, but no one heard back. And this is just showing what we already covered. Luigi was reported missing 2 weeks before the yeeting, and the feds already knew his identity at least 4 days before he was apprehended at the McDonald's. Yeah, so he was reported missing 2 weeks before this happens. I'm sorry, but this is very weird to me. Like, they knew about him, and maybe he's an easy patsy. It's hard to say. Failed to mention his family are closely tied to Nancy Pelosi's maternal side by way of Luigi's grandfather, Italian real estate developer Nicholas Mangione, who was appointed to the Baltimore school board despite community protests by Pelosi's brother, the mayor Thomas D'Alessandro III in 1970. Haven't even touched on some of the forensic head scratchers, the seeming physiognomy discrepancies between the various surveillance footage, exactly, which I'm not necessarily wedded to, as I feel there could be mundane lighting and pixelation explanations. That's possible. The mysterious tipster at the McDonald's, the inscrutability of Luigi's decision to bring his so-called ghost gun, fake IDs, and thousands of cash at the McDonald's. Like, why would he be carrying this stuff around with him? It doesn't make sense. And don't forget that at his arraignment, he said to the judge that items had been planted in his bag. There is a seeming inconsistency of a multimillionaire, purportedly ideological yeeter, who supposedly decided to murk a farm boy class trader from Iowa to make a larger point about the inhumane profiteering of the health insurance industry, only to plead not guilty to the charges after his arrest, which, if he's the vigilante he's been portrayed as, you'd kind of assume he went into this anticipating the possibility of having the book thrown at him, right? On top of this, in an Oswald-esque fashion, he shouts defiant lines. So when they're taking him in handcuffs, he shouts out, this is completely out of touch and an insult to the intelligence of the American people. During his perp walk, that could easily be interpreted as him trying to bring attention to a concerted cover-up and his scapegoating. Then we have this appointment to lead his defense. Yeah, the lawyer whose husband is representing P. Diddy. It's wild. Also, she hosts a Trump critical podcast with her law partner Ben. So she is somebody who is maybe has TDS. I find that very interesting. Which brings us to the coincidental timing of Nancy Pelosi's tumble down a set of marble stairs in Luxembourg yesterday. The below post is mostly facetious, of course, but if she succumbs to her cracked hip and replacement surgery, it will be a hard ask not to wonder if they could be related. Yeah, I find that to be wild. Very weird stuff going on here. I'll add this to the mix. Apple's AI apparently incorrectly synopsized a BBC story and blasted off a news bulletin to thousands, claiming Luigi had yeeted himself. A reminder, BBC reported World Trade Center collapsed a good 30 minutes or so before it had fallen. Yeah, this is just crazy. Absolute insanity. Oh, whoops. Luigi Mangione yeets himself. Whoopsies, we just made a boo-boo. Like, this is weird. It's absolutely strange. And so I just wanted to bring this to your attention, and I want to know what you guys think about this. Do you think it's possible this is a frame job? Do you think he did it? Do you think he's guilty? Or do you think that maybe he's a Dave McAllen, PTK, you know, mind-controlled shooter? I think that's also possible. So that's it for today. I hope you guys have a good day. Whee!